when you do that, it doesn't change your body. Your body doesn't actually become diseased, and your body cannot ultimately die, because the glow will always be there, and it will forever be the illumination of light and not matter. But you can seem to create an experience of density in your body that you could call an attack on your body. But remember that in order to become preoccupied with the glow, you must already have turned your back to the altar.
That's hence my question. And it's not valuable to look at it that way, that it is an attack on the body, but it kind of, that's what I thought when you said that.
Well, let me put it this way. When you take your fist and attack the wall by punching it, which one do you think hurts?
Your hand.
Yeah, not the wall.
Yeah.
So when you use your body as a means of attack, you find it suffering. But the moment you turn around and give your attention to the altar, and you abandon the attack mode so that you might be infilled with the Father's love that illuminates that it, the Father's love, is the very presence of your being, then all injury that seemed to occur in your little fantasy disappears. You see.
I see.
And the glow doesn't go away, but it isn't the center of your attention anymore. Okay.
The acceptance of the atonement by everyone is only a matter of time. This may appear to contradict free will because of the inevitability of the final decision, but this is not so. You can temporize and you are capable of enormous procrastination, but you cannot depart entirely from your Creator, who set the limits on your ability to macerate.
No, to
miscreate.
Yes. Now.
It's an herbal word.
You see, in order to act at odds with the Father, you must attempt to stretch the Father or compress the Father or in some way twist what the Father is, because you're given no other material to work with but what God is being. And so you might imagine that God is a giant rubber band that is eternal and inviolable, and therefore cannot be damaged or broken, but which, because it is a rubber band, can be stretched. And so you attach one end of it to an immovable rock and you start stretching it. Well, you can't stop it from being what it is, and you can't make it become something else. But what you find happening is that as you walk further and further away from the rock, it becomes more and more difficult because you are trying with more and more force to accomplish something that is impossible, to stretch God out of shape. So you could say that you have free will to try to stretch God or twist him into something he isn't. But because he can't be twisted into something he isn't, you will inevitably come to the realization that what you're attempting to do is impossible, and with understanding and with comprehension and with willingness, you'll stop trying to do the impossible. So the end is inevitable. Free will means that you have the right to cooperate with the way things work. But it also means that you have to cooperate with the way things work because it's your choice. The ultimate choice that you're faced with is that you have decided to cooperate with the way things work. And the word cooperate is very close in meaning to the word co-creation. Continue.
An imprisoned will endanger a situation which, I'm not reading very well tonight. Maybe somebody else should take over. I'll give it one more try. An imprisoned will engenders a situation which, in the extreme, becomes altogether intolerable.
That's the really stretched rubber band.
Tolerance for pain may be high, but it is not without limit.
You see, you never totally lose your sanity. And so when something becomes obviously unreasonable, you have the capacity to recognize it. Continue.
Eventually, everyone begins to recognize, however dimly, that there must be a better way. As this recognition becomes more firmly established, it becomes a turning point.
Yes.
This ultimately reawakens spiritual vision, simultaneously weakening the investment in physical sight.
And I'm going to put it this way. Spiritual vision arises out of the decision to turn toward the altar. Physical vision results from the decision to turn your back on the altar. The decision to turn your back to the altar is an abandonment of wisdom. And the decision to turn back toward the altar is an expression of wisdom.
The alternating investment in the two levels of perception is usually experienced as conflict, which can be very acute. But the outcome is as certain as God.
And the more acute a situation gets, the closer you are, I'm going to put it this way, to having your will broken. Your will to operate at odds with God. And so the more acute the situation is, you might say the more miracle ready you are. Because the sanity in you that you cannot get rid of, even though you can try to ignore it, stands ready in that state of acuteness to register with you. It stands ready for you to recognize once again, so that you say, I get it. I've been making it difficult for myself by doing it the way I wanted to do it, without being curious to know what really works. And so I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to turn around where I can see the altar. I am going to re-embrace that in me which holds the answer which I rejected at some point. You see, wisdom is something more than just an intellectual aha. It's something that comes from very deep within you because it's part of your innate sanity. And so you feel it. Continue.
Spiritual vision literally cannot see error and merely looks for atonement. All solutions the physical eye seeks dissolves. Spiritual vision looks within and recognizes immediately that the altar has been defiled and needs to be repaired and protected. Perfectly aware of the right defense, it passes over all others, looking past error to truth.
Yes. You see, the whole reason that one doesn't turn toward the altar is because one is preoccupied with the error. You see. And defense against it out of self-righteousness, you see. And so one is committed to exposing the error and demonstrating its horribleness and proving that it must be annihilated. Instead of stopping a moment and going within and becoming still, which is the equivalent of turning around so that your back isn't to the altar, and letting in the perspective that is naturally and eternally yours, so that you can, with love, reassess your choice of how to perceive what you're seeing and make a new choice, colored by, supported by, and illuminated by the love that you are, that you have become reacquainted with once again, by virtue of abandoning your commitment to the error and its eradication, and instead yielding into the love in the center of your being that is the presence of God and His perspective. And that's what heals. Continue.
Because of the strength of its vision, it brings the mind into its service.
Ah, yes. You all have thought that your mind is the authorizer, that it's not there to be in service to anything. It is something for everyone else and everything else to be in service to. Let's move this mountain. Let's clear this forest. Let's transform the land. Let's do what will damage the ozone layer, just because we want to do it. After all, we won't be here to suffer the consequences. Let's make our mark on the earth. Let's make our mark on each other. Let's coerce each other into being what we want them to be, or stop them from being what we don't want them to be. And so everything must become subject and in service to the mind that has conceived the idea of how things ought to be. But that's not the function of the mind. And as long as one insists upon employing it that way, one is at odds with the way things work. And you are going to exist in an ongoing state of suffering, which will be more or less intense depending upon whether you are more or less in harmony with the way things work. It is insulting to the ego to let the mind be in service to the atonement, to be in service to the Father's will, to be in service to love. Continue.
May I ask a question with regards to what you said just now?
Yes.
When you said, the mind says, let's move the mountain and make people do this or whatever, it seems to me that the underlying driving force in this world seems to be the seeking money, the accumulation of wealth.
No, let's be clearer than that.
Okay.
The driving force in the world isn't that. The driving force in those who are conceptualizing how things are to be in the world is that.
Yes. Yes.
The world is the manifestation of God. Never more, never less. So be careful how you use your words, because likewise, the body can't function at odds with you because it doesn't have a capacity to act on its own. But when you say, my body is killing me, or my body is letting me down, you create an image that simply isn't true. And if you believe that image, then undoing that belief becomes the first step before you can actually get down to the realization that you are using your body as a defense, trying to make it function in a way it wasn't meant to. By following instructions you are giving to it that you weren't meant to give to it, you see. And once that realization occurs, you can address the problem by changing your mind. Continue, though.
Would it be
the current mindset in the world is
the current mindset in the world is to accumulate wealth. This to me seems like
the current mindset in the world is to accumulate power.
Power, right.
And wealth seems to be one of the most effective means of influencing others to allow power to be exercised over them. Continue.
Even people who have great wealth still seem to be motivated to not all, but many, to accumulate more power. And more power, and more power, and more power. So is this another way of saying defense? Having power, therefore you can defend against whatever you perceive to be
Absolutely. No, that doesn't have to be the only motivation for wealth.
The reason I'm delving into this is because it seems that while the majority of people in the world are in the mode of thinking that we need to accumulate more power to protect ourselves or whatever, then it really slows down any way of shifting into another way of being.
Absolutely.
Here's an example. For instance, we know that governments are basically corrupt in the world, but yet it's not like we're incensed by it any longer, or we say, well, let's get rid of those guys and bring in some honest people. It's almost, we accept it because we're trying to do the same thing, or the majority of people are trying to do the same thing, and that is accumulate power. So how can I fault those who are accumulating power more successfully, apparently, than I am, because I'm trying to do the same thing? So therefore, I'm going to accept the way things are and just get the money and run, so to speak. Which seems like that's where the world in terms of the illusion, is stuck right now.
That's where the current mindset is
Exactly.
stuck. Yes.
Exactly.
Ah.
So.
But so what? It may be currently immobilized, but not incapable of movement. And so, someone, somewhere, like maybe you, or anyone else in this room, can abandon that game, abandon that mindset, and start being the presence of love, the gifter instead of the getter. And let everything that is done with money be done for reasons other than self-protection. Let what is done with money embrace and gift with no strings. Let everything that is done with money bless, not you, but those to whom you would extend your love. Not your love, but the love that arises in you when you have turned around toward the altar and been filled by the love that is in it. Now, you might say, well, that's going to be a hard row to hoe, because I'm going against the whole world. Well, you got to remember, the only one whose misperceptions are distressing you are yours. And when you turn around, your distress will dissolve. And you'll see that you're not going against the stream. You're not going against the world's mindset. Because you don't need them to change in order for your distress to dissolve. And you don't need them to see it your way in order for your wholeness to be experienced by you. But by being love, you will be part of the leaven that leavens the whole lump. And allow someone else to say, who still thinks they're caught in the world, well, he did it, and she did it. And I understand that over in Idaho, there's a whole group of people who did it. It is not as hard. I don't think it's going to be as hard as Michael did when he did it. You start the domino falling.
So it's like when you're filled up by turning around the other way and being filled by the love that's coming from the altar, then when you're filled up, you cannot but give.
That is correct.
Which is the only legitimate reason for giving, because you are filled.
Exactly. Because you can't hold it all.
And there's no reason to want to hold it all.
That's correct. Continue.
This reestablishes the power of the mind and makes it increasingly unable to tolerate delay, realizing that it only adds unnecessary pain. As a result, the mind becomes increasingly sensitive to what it would once have regarded as a very minor intrusion of discomfort.
Yes. Oh, and that increased sensitivity. It makes it so easy to get pissed off at everyone else's ignorance, which makes it very easy for you to become defended again and turn your back on the altar. My God, these are my friends. I had no idea they didn't grasp what they said they were grasping. I had no idea how far back in the Dark Ages they actually were. You see? As you see more clearly, things that hadn't bothered you before didn't register with you before. And as you become clearer, it's easier to see how unclear others still are. Which means that you didn't assess them well before you became enlightened. And you were really associating with, people you shouldn't have been associating with. And you also find yourself with the feeling that because you thought they knew better, and now you see that they don't know better, they must have been misrepresenting themselves and therefore are not worthy of your putting up with their ignorance. There are many ways the ego can come in the face of greater clarity and a greater willingness to love, to show you just how unworthy those who you liked before are of the pure love that you now have to give, because they had misled you. So you must be very careful that as your greater capacity to be the presence of love because you've opened yourself up to it, I'm sorry, I lost it. You must be very careful